Howdy, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do a different thing today. I'm here with my buddy Kevin. I've known Kevin for a couple years. We're going to be talking about human trafficking. I know it's a kind of a hot topic right now, but Kevin is kind of on the front lines and deals with it every day at work. And so wanted to bring him on board and ask him kind of a couple questions and get his take on kind of what is really going on, some myths, some truths, things that we really don't know about, or some things that are kind of misconstrued or whatnot. But I guess welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So how did you? I guess first off, what do you do, and how does your job relate to human traffic? I've got a gun on me, so we're okay at this point.
I've been in the law enforcement, criminal justice sector probably for over, let's say, 20 years.
Okay.
Right now, I work for an agency that is part of HITRA. HITRA is a Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance. It is an amalgamation of it's 20, 30 different entities. Majority are law enforcement. Some are charitable organizations, second chance organizations. Pretty much the whole focal point is to get these victims and survivors out of their situations.
Okay.
And that's the key. Arresting people is the goal, but the key to that is getting people out of their situations.
So I know you've been doing that for at least 1 to 2 years, if not a little bit more. I know the previous department or agency that you worked for, you kind of did the same thing, did you not?
Yes.
Okay.
It was kind of it was the same thing, but now I've moved into more of it's more specific to human trafficking.
Okay.
Before it was a lot of different crimes that happened in the department. Now it is my sole basis is investigative human trafficking.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, awesome. I guess we'll start off unless I'll give you the first pitch. Let you, if there's something in particular that you wanted to start off with.
Oh, no.
If not, I've got kind of a list of stuff. I guess my first question is, and I'll kind of use human trafficking and child trafficking interchangeably. If you want to go into a bit more of one or the other, that's fine.
Sure.
I guess the main question is it really that big of an issue?
It is. The big three, and law enforcement call it the power three as far as crimes that are committed. You have the gun trade, firearms. You have the drug trade, and then you have human trafficking. As of 2012, human trafficking took over firearms. So now it's the second most popular. I know that's a bad word to use in this context, but what I mean by that is popular as the number that are involved on both sides, and is the second most profitable. Human trafficking is profitable because, unlike drug trafficking, if I make a product and you take the product, I have to.
It's consumed. You can. I know that's the thing with human trafficking is a product. I guess that's a horrible way to talk about somebody, but it's what it is.
Yeah. That
product can be used for whatever purpose until it doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Okay, so it is that big of an issue. What about? I know people always throw out the whole 800,000 kids a year go missing. Is that true? Is that kind of I don't know. What do you have anything specific to that? Do really that many kids go missing? I mean,
well, and you and I are pretty much from the same generation.
Yes.
And the whole adjective back in the day when we were kids is that you didn't want to end up on the back of a milk carton. So you would have these children, and it was seen as, I say that it turned into a cliche thing. It turned into, you don't want to end up on the back of a milk carton, like you better get indoors or whatever. Right? But what they're finding that over the past 20 years is that that's where these kids are going. I cannot specifically say what just happened in the news, where it was exactly at, but they've had in the past couple weeks some stings and some hits on some locations where they found multiple children involved in child trafficking and human trafficking, and a big percentage of these children were missing.
Yep.
They were considered missing, and what they're finding is it's like you said. You're asking me a question: if human trafficking is that big of a deal? That's where it all starts. Is that for years, prostitution was seen as prostitution. A missing child was seen as a missing child. And now a lot of people are giving a face to human trafficking, and it's
all kind of, is it somewhat intermixed or whatnot?
It
like
is.
One perpetuates the other?
It is. And even if it doesn't, at times it can lead to that. That's what's, it's an iceberg. I mean, we've only looked into some of the aspects of this. It reaches back internationally. A lot of cases that I deal with, a lot of investigations that I deal with, do not originate here. We're talking Cuba, Brazil, Colombia, China, even the European markets.
Wow.
It's highly organized.
So since you're talking about international and different countries, this was a question that I think my Muay Thai coach actually wanted to ask Greg. And let me see if I can pull it up. But it essentially was something to the point of, he goes, I'll read it verbatim. He said, I want to hear about the true difference between U.S. being an import zone, a buyer, if you will, compared to abduction and exportation. I know, so essentially I'm guessing if I'm reading this correctly, is the United States becoming more of a buyer or more of an exporter of human trafficking?
They're considered more of a buyer. This is where everybody ends up.
That is sad.
This is where everybody ends up. Yes, sir.
That is
yes,
sad.
Sir. Yes, sir. It is.
Is there a certain, what is the makeup of the buyers? I mean, who does that consist of? Are we talking some multi-level, big-time organizations? Are we talking about some, street-level drug dealer type stuff? I mean, what are we? Who's buying?
It usually encompasses is both. Well, as far as who's buying, that's who's not buying. I know that sounds kind of crazy, and I'll explain.
Yeah, please.
The market here for human trafficking, not talking about child trafficking, not talking about labor trafficking, let's just say sex trafficking, is huge. And coronavirus has actually made it worse.
How so?
It's embedded everything. So now we do investigations at establishments. Mm-hmm. Let's say we do 4 or 5 investigations at, let's say, a strip club. Places like that, right now, are supposed to be closed. So the people who are trafficked are no longer visible. So everything goes into a more of an underground thing. We're talking dark web. We're talking internet sales. We're talking stuff that is off the radar as far as the public eye. And to reiterate what we talked about before, that's a huge problem with human trafficking, because so many people think it's not that big of a deal and it doesn't go on, but it has. And but anyway, I digress. But the need for it is astronomical. Like, you've seen all the busts. They'll have a ring or a sting or something like that, and they'll arrest like 40, 50 guys. That's not even a drop in the bucket, and it doesn't stop anything.
And that's probably the lower level.
Right. But as far as the organization, there is international trade. But the way it works here in Texas is I-10 is a corridor for human trafficking. It runs east to west.
I also know, so sorry to interrupt, I also know my normal 9 to 5 takes me down to South Texas quite a bit. I also know that route coming up through the valley and like Corpus, mm-hmm. Robstown, that is, I think, just a hotbed of... And
that's actually what I was... No, you're good. And that's actually what I was going to say next, and that hits the nail on the head when it comes to that is because 59 intersects with I-10, and that's the other corridor. And everything intersects in Houston. Houston is the hub of human trafficking in the state of Texas.
Wow.
Period. And anybody tries to tell you different, they're wrong. It is the hub for, and that's for any kind of human trafficking. That's international. That's local. It's huge.
So let's go back a little bit, and you kind of brought something up that I wanted to ask. So you talk about kind of with Corona, a lot of stuff's kind of gone underground, dark web, kind of
Yes.
Not as visible, kind of hiding some stuff. What was it, a couple months ago, there was some, I don't know if this was a conspiracy theory or if people were just making something out of nothing, but the whole Wayfair incident where people were noticing like pieces of furniture, I don't know if pieces of furniture were going for stupid, ridiculous amounts of money. I can't remember exactly what the description would be like, hey, this 10-year-old Sophia cabinet's going for $15,000. Well, they found this, 10-year-old girl, Sophia, who had gone missing, some time ago. Is there any correlation between that, or is that people making something of nothing?
No, there is. And what this comes down to is the technical aspects of the internet. The dark web is a real deal. Yep. It's sad, but it is real and it's not going anywhere. We've had cases where people are literally ordering girls like pizza.
That was another thing I was going to ask you. Is the whole Pizzagate talking about, toppings or whatnot, is that real?
Yes. All that stuff, the lingo, the emoji stuff that you see on advertisements and stuff like that, that's a real language. That stuff is broken down. It's turned into, do we present this in court? It's a lot. It shows intent, and that's really what we're looking at. But yes, the Wayfair incidents, and again, I'm going back to what we talked about before. People assume that, there's no way that can happen, or it's a conspiracy thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, people. That's one of the things that dealing with, shooters and whatnot, firearms training is one of the things that I have to tell people is like, guys, there's evil out there. Violence exists.
Yes.
And I think too often people want to believe that, because they're a rational thinking person, they are a law abiding person. They're like, there's no way somebody could ever do that.
Yeah.
Well, the criminal doesn't think like you.
That's right.
And that's one of the things that I wish people would get and hopefully understand is, like, and I was talking to somebody about this on social media. I honestly believe right now we are in a spiritual warfare. The evil that we're seeing, this is dark and light, good and evil. I mean, I think it's something that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
So,
and what's been more troubling is that the criminals, especially in the human trafficking element, they like that people think that human trafficking is a real thing. They like that the majority of, especially suburban America, thinks that this is something that only happens in the city. They think this is something that is in another state, maybe on the other side of town or whatever. But it is everywhere. There are operations, there are stuff going on all over Houston, all over Texas. No matter what the socio-economical status of a town is, it can be poor, it can be rich, it does not matter. Human trafficking.
So it reaches all. That was another question I was going to ask you. Is there a certain demographic, a certain age that traffickers are looking for that, those victims are more susceptible to being trafficked or whatnot?
There is a certain sort of psychological profile that they're looking for.
Can you go into that?
They're looking for usually, young girls.
What age? So
usually the age, as far as, is anywhere between maybe 10 all the way up to 18.
Okay.
But they're looking for a psychological profiles of neediness. So girls who have lost parents, girls who don't fit in, girls who low self-esteem. It's a courting phase. Now there are abductions, and that usually happens with the younger kids. But as far as girls, it's your assailants come with smiles. They come with promises. They come with, hey, I'll take care of you. Hey, I'll do this. Hey, I'll do that. And it leads to, a drug addiction. It leads to working in illicit places like strip clubs or stuff like that. That's what we deal a lot with. And that's why it is so hard. It is literally like pulling teeth. Let's say we're making an arrest on a girl. We bring her in. And part of the HITRA thing is that we have organizations that offer these women second chances. Give them a place to live, they give them money, they give them education. And I'm not exactly sure on the percentages, but it's almost like the recidivism rate of prisoners is 50-50. Because even though they're given all these chances, they still have some sort of tie to use I can't find a better word, to these pimps who have courted them for all this time. Yeah.
So there was, and I was listening to I think it was a podcast a couple days ago. I was mowing the lawn from Skill Set Radio, and they had one of their guests that they had was Baraka Ulrich, who's Civilian Carry Radio. I'm not sure if you've ever listened to that, but he was talking about how his parents, so his dad died when he was just a few days old, but his parents before that got basically suckered into a cult. And that's one of the things that he always thought. He's like, I looked back at, where my dad came from, what his education was, like his, I think he looked back and he's like, I come from a good line of solid, people, good salt of the earth people. He's like, how could somebody, and that's the question he kept asking, how could somebody how could my father basically be, buy into that? Or how could somebody convince him to that? And then they started talking. It's like, there's a certain need that the cult or somebody, I guess, finds that somebody needs, and they foster that and start to just, basically develop that. And so I guess that's almost exactly the same as, what you're talking about. It
is. It's pretty much the same. And it's funny, you say it's a cult. It almost turns into some of these girls. It is a cult. I don't know if you watched the R. Kelly documentary.
I think I might have seen a little bit of it. That's human trafficking. What he did to those girls is human trafficking. I've worked many cases, where women, when they're arrested, they're wearing all the same jewelry. They all have the same tattoos. I've even worked cases where a girl was branded. These human traffickers see them as property, and that is it. There's nothing else. And what's really sad, and you talk about Christian values and morals, is that our society is almost ripe for this to happen, because they have glamorized sex and drugs, and they've glamorized that lifestyle. You see, videos and this, that, and the other, and that's what brings these girls into it. There was, and I kind of feel like I didn't grow up a sheltered life. I grew up in a very diverse community. I've seen some stuff, but there was I think it's the number one song now in the United States by Cardi B. And I literally had to Google what that meant. What WAP, whatever, WAP.
Yeah.
And I looked at my wife, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I think I was going down, maybe YouTube recommended that video, and I saw 20, 25 seconds of it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is probably one of the most dirtiest, raunchiest, and it's now the cultural norm. It no longer shocks anybody.
Yeah. And
it's like, you got to be kidding me, man.
Yeah, and that's what you mean when the whole Christian, moral, and even if you're not in Christianity or anything like that, it's just human rights, basic human rights and morals, and whether you pray to the Lord or not, it's these criminals they fester upon that stuff. and they thrive upon it. And it goes back to what we were saying. They can sell a product repeatedly over and over and over.
Yep. So so going back down while I've got it up, I've got a question from another buddy of our who trains. He said, I've got a teenage daughter and a 10-year-old son. What are the current trends, tactics? So you talked about grooming, things like that. What are the current trends, tactics that human traffickers are using to lure children in or kidnap them? He said, I always preach to my kids to be a hard target. And that's also the same thing that we kind of talk about with the average criminal. You're essentially, it's a target of opportunity. They're going to take the path of least resistance to get whatever they want. So, so he said, I always preach to my kids to be a hard target. So I'd like to know what to tell them to look out for in today's environment, because I know tactics changed. Any tips are appreciated.
It really just goes back to what we were talking about before about the influences of popular culture. And that's, society thinks that you can put up a fence around your house, but I can say, Alexa, show me this, and Alexa, show me that, and I can get on the internet, and I can do all that stuff. That's where the problem lies right there. That's the gateway. Advertisements, TV, music, like you were saying,
yeah.
That's the front line. That's the glamorization of violence and sex and everything else that goes into it. And human trafficking is a byproduct of that. It's almost to the point now where prostitution, people see, and prostitution does still happen on the street. Street prostitution is still a real thing. But there's a human trafficking element to it. And even go a step further, like take a massage parlor. What they're trying to explain to people now is that it's going to be in the least places that you wouldn't think. And massage parlors have a bad rap, and that's what you think, this, that, and the other. But places like hotels, places kids go on trips, friends go on trips. The other side of the social media thing and how to prepare your children is watch the wolf pack mentality that children get. If one person's doing it, I'm going to do it too. If 3 people are doing it, I'm going to do it too. And that's parents have, they can teach their children so much, but when they hit adolescence, which is a point in time where people enter into human trafficking for the most part, they learn a lot from their friends. And, my friend said, hey, let's go to this party. My friend said, let's listen to this. My friend said, do this drug. My friend, and it's funny because it's the revolution that comes from, we were kids once. Mm-hmm. Our parents told us that. It holds true today.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no magic bullet to end human trafficking other than, like you said, prepare your children. Prepare them. Do not shelter them. Prepare them.
I guess the best way, and that was one of the questions. And I guess it seems that the best we could do is to let them know, hey, this is what is out there. Monitor their activities, both online, whatever they're doing, and then also know who they're running around with.
Exactly.
I've got two little ones, and so they're not at that adolescent age yet. But that's one of the things that we're even seeing right now is, some of the kids that they interact with. Is like, hey, if this continues, I don't necessarily want my kid hanging out with this person.
Yeah.
And it might just be little innocent, because they're, like I said, they're nowhere close to 10 years old, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the line, where is that going to lead? So I think it, so I guess one of the questions that I had towards the end, and you kind of just answered it, it starts with the parents. It starts in the home. Exactly.
And it's a responsibility that some parents either don't want to take or we call it in law enforcement and criminal justice intergenerational transmission. Intergenerational transmission, it's a tongue twister, is pretty much whatever your parents have dealt with, let's say in criminal justice or law enforcement, 9 times out of 10 it's going to carry over to them. So if you have a parental guidance that says, stay away from police, don't trust them, don't do this, don't do that, it usually carries over to the children, and it perpetuates through generations. Now, that works with misinformation or non-information. So if you have a generation that claims that human trafficking or anything like that either doesn't exist or it's nothing to be worried about, it usually carries over. And that can be dangerous over time. It builds up. And some people, you can't tell them they're about to be hit until it's 2 inches in front of their faces. And that's why a lot of parents, usually the parents that come forward about human trafficking and their children, say, I never thought it would have happened to my daughter. I never thought this would have happened. I thought that this would never touch us. It's very few and far between you get a parent who, had some sense and say, yeah, well, I knew it was going to happen, or I saw that coming. No, that usually hasn't happened. It's always parents. They're like, I never thought this would have happened. And they've admitted, I wish I would have taken the time to say something to my children and say, hey, this can happen. Denial is a powerful thing.
Or get more involved in your kids' lives.
It is. Oh, yeah. No, you're right. You're exactly right.
I mean, that's one of the things our mutual friend Chris that I was talking to him about, and like I said, I wanted to get him on here, but he said he hadn't been working long enough to kind of get much into it.
Yeah.
But that's one of the questions that I asked him. Is a lot of times, you hear the stories about children, and you had talked about this, children getting snatched out of plain sight, like 6, 7, 8-year-old kids, like the whole John Benet Ramsey kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Any idea what happened to her? You got any insight on that one?
No. There is. It's kind of funny you bring that up.
I imagine that is probably going to be so. Another thing too is you're actually working on your doctorate right now.
I am,
and I would swear that is going to be a case study for the books. That will be.
Yeah,
studied.
And it's very, very funny you brought that up. There, for a very long time, the whole beauty pageants and this, that, and the other. And I don't know if you saw recently what Netflix has done.
Oh, yes.
So this goes back to the glamorization, and this goes back to the normalization that these children are seen as objects. They're seen as sexual objects. And that kind of goes back to the John Benet Ramsey thing. Back then there wasn't social media like there is now. Right. But if there was, it's like that song you were talking about. Sex, I mean, it travels the speed of light now. Yeah. And yeah, it's just the normalization of these girls, and it's sickening. And for that even to make it past a producer's desk and say, hey, I got this show, I got these 11-year-old kids, and they wear makeup and they dance like they're on a stripper pole, and what do you think? Oh yeah, let's run it. And that's what's even more shocking is that it's human. The human trafficking side, it's like the chicken or the egg. Was human trafficking always here? Or are we just now are starting to notice it because we have normalized the exploitation of children for so many years?
Isn't prostitution the oldest profession in the world? And then probably slavery is pretty dang close to it.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right.
No, I mean, you bring up a good point. Is who is the idiot that thought the concept up of that, talking about those kids on Netflix? I think it was a bunch of tweens twerking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So who's the asshole that thought it up? Then you've got to have somebody go and film it. Then you got to have somebody edit it, all that stuff, throw it to a producer, and it's like how many people are complicit in the act of that being put out there? It's not like it just magically appeared. Like it went through multiple layers of stuff, and everybody's like, yeah, cool, that's fine with me. Go ahead and send it up. Yeah, it's going to be a hit.
And what's even more alarming is that really when it comes down to the exploitation of children like that over the years, stuff like the John Benet Ramsey stuff, and human trafficking all have something in common. It's all about money. It all comes back to the almighty dollar. And, you've seen what's going on in California with the whole, I'm not saying they're legalizing pedophilia.
No, that's kind of what they're doing. And I'll give you my thoughts on that is because I honestly, and not going in too much into the craziness, but it's, like I said, there is some straight up evil that we're dealing with right now. And I think that there's a lot of people in power right now that are complicit in that. Either, I don't know if they partake in it or not, but I guarantee you they know what's going on and they're not doing anything about it. And so they're trying to legally find a way to say, hey, this is okay, because I think more people are discovering, hey, this is what's really going on. And so I think they're trying to kind of cover their ass. Yeah, because they're about to get exposed.
I totally agree. No. I totally agree. And it's things like that. Now, California and Texas are, they're so different. It's not even funny.
Excluding Austin.
Excluding Austin. So
y'all stay away from it.
But Texas is like the opposite. Texas now, especially here in Houston, they are not just going after victims. They are not just going after traffickers. They are starting to go after property owners. They want to go after the land, and they want to seize the land, which is, I think, amazing.
If you don't give them a place to conduct that operation,
no, that's true.
I would agree with that.
And they have upped human trafficking as far as giving it some teeth. There's solicitation and prostitution, of course. But if you create an ad or solicit an ad or even, if you're a property owner and you are aware that human trafficking or solicitation, prostitution is going on in your property, you are held liable. And the state of Texas, places like the city of Houston, they're trying to seize property and make it to where you can no longer, and if somebody else buys the property, they have no right to open up an establishment that, a massage parlor or a strip club or a bar or anything like that. So they're trying to eradicate human trafficking one business at a time. And as I said before, the only way to stop this is to hit them in the pocketbook. Yeah. Because these businesses, you shut one down, 5 more open. Yeah. It's like gremlins. You pour water on it, and they just multiply like crazy. So they're having an extremely hard time, and these attorneys have come in, and they've been like, you know what? We're just going to take your property. We're tired of it. You rename it, you LLC it here, and this, that, and the other. But it's all about money. All about that money.
So you said more police departments, I guess, are most departments now putting more funds towards human trafficking. I know, for instance, my business partner, they had, about a year or so ago, they had done a sting. Not too far from here, where I think it was in conjunction with, might have been HPD or some other people, and that's basically they were doing a human trafficking sting. This whole defund the police movement, it's almost like we need to. And I don't hold the view that, in order to solve problems we should throw money at it. But it's almost like this is one thing that, yes, we do need more funds need to be diverted to address this issue. And so I guess my question to you is: are more, not even just state, federal, or whatnot, but just local departments in general dedicating more manpower, more funds, more resources to combat trafficking?
When like I said, I've been in law enforcement for over 20 years and been doing a lot of analytical work at criminal intelligence for the past, let's say, 12. One of the first operations I went on, it was, I want to say around Galveston. It was a human trafficking sting where we did solicitation ads, and we have victim oriented stings, and we have, we're looking for the pimps. Sometimes they're both. We kind of go back and forth. But this one was mainly trying to get victims and get them off the streets. And this would be my first operation. I wasn't sure what to expect. After 45 women were brought in the course of 7 hours.
Oh, my God.
I realized that this was even bigger than I thought. And what really hit the nail on the head, about halfway through the night, they were bringing in women ranging from age all the way up to 33 down to 17, and they all looked like women. I mean, it was like this. That's she's making her own decisions, not to make her own decisions, because somebody's making it for her. Yeah. But they're old enough to kind of understand what they're going through. They just can't. They need help getting out. But what hit the nail on the head was when they brought a 13-year-old girl in.
Oh, God.
Who had more makeup on her than I've seen in any of those beauty pageants or whatnot. And she was carrying in her bag an assortment of clothes. And when she walked into our operation, everybody got quiet. You could hear a pin drop because it was insane. I mean, this is a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a baby. And what made it even worse was that she was not brought there by her pimp. She was brought there by her pimp's, what we call in human trafficking a bottom bitch. And what they do is they've been in human trafficking so long that they're not getting out. And they work as a conduit and entice these girls who get into it, and they're like, well, I want to get out now. And it's like, oh, honey, it's going to be okay. I've done this for years. I've done this. I've done that. You'll be fine. This is what you need to do. And that's who brought her. And
did she know what she was? Do you think she knew what she was bringing her to? Do you think she was basically saying, look, I know this thing ain't legit, but there's no reason why a 13-year-old girl should be in this. Do you think she might have been looking out for the girl's best interests?
Oh, no, I'm not. No, I mean, she was there. She was handling her. She was making sure that she went into what she thought was a hotel room. Was a hotel room with a John. She was bringing her there. And it was insane because and the light at the end of this tunnel is that this girl had lost both her parents. She was living with her aunt. Her friend had told her, if you want to make some extra money, I know some people. And it was actually her first time. She hadn't engaged in anything yet. This was actually her first time. The odds of her being roped into this and having a way out on her first time, it was insane. But to go back to what you were saying, the sheer numbers of every operation that we have is insane. It's always over 30 or 40 women. It's never a dull night or a dull moment. It doesn't matter if it's on the weekend. It doesn't matter if it's 8 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, which we have done operations on. And business is always booming. Always booming.
That is ridiculous. That's divine intervention right there.
Amen.
Any idea what happened to the girl afterwards? Do you have any?
They have, and what I love about the operations that we're a part of is that we are fully staffed. And this goes back to what you were talking about as far as funds, because we are fully staffed. We have, of course, law enforcement agents. We have intelligence analysts like myself and many more. But we have nurses. We have social workers. We have counselors, all working in conjunction, in tandem to help these girls, to help these women get out. So as far as when they say you're defunding, they want to defund the police, that's going to defund programs such as that.
And I know usually that could be another topic for another day, but I know usually the first thing to go with budget cuts is, training expenditures, but then you also got, like you said, that other stuff that they're going to be taking money from. Do you have so we talked about, the majority of them ages, like 10 to 17, 18, trying to kind of lure them in. Do you have a breakdown percentage? Is it like, is it the whole 80-20 rule to where 80% of these traffic victims are kind of groomed and then a small portion are kind of snatched up out of the blue? Any idea what that breakdown is?
I think it's going to be pretty close to 80-20
Okay.
As far as the grooming process goes. Usually the younger kids are the ones who are the ones that are snatched as far as, the abductive or what, but it's never, when it comes to the abductions, I can't say it. It's never, like you see them on TV.
Okay.
It's nothing, like Taken or anything like that. But I will say this: once a girl enters into human trafficking and she has become a profit for, when I mean profit, I mean like money, a money stream for for a pimp or a handler. It's extremely hard for her to get out, and this is where the violence, and this is where the premeditated abductions come into. These women, it's very, very, very hard for them to get out. We've worked some cases before where, they threaten the family. That's usually the number one go-to when a woman tries to leave. John will be like, or the pimp will be like, "I'm going to kill your family. I'm going to kill whoever." What a lot of people don't know is that in other countries, and women who come from other countries, say Colombia, Brazil, China, they come here, they're forced into it. They don't abduct them, they're abducting their children.
Oh, shit.
So you've got these women who are forced into sex because now they have abducted their children, and they're like, "We'll kill your children if you try to get out." And it's just all the creative ways that human traffickers have on keeping these women is insane. I mean, it's you name it. There's, I've had women show me their feet where they've poured battery acid. And scarred up and stuff like that.
So they can't walk away.
So they can't walk away.
Or is that more of like an identification marking?
It's both. Okay. It's both. Anything to kind of injure them, or anything to kind of make it to where and the whole time it's you need me. There's no way you can get out. Nobody will love you. This, that, and the other. And but anyway, to go back to what you were saying, it's about 70-30, okay. 80-20. Then it all depends on where in the world you're talking to. Now, that's what's great about the United States. And I may digress to some other stuff, what we're going through, what we're going through in our country right now. This country is amazing. My wife, she's from Brazil, yep. And she's told me about the human trafficking stuff there. Police don't care. They care less. You talk about China, you talk about Colombia, you talk about India, where they've, this is a great country, and they're taking the time to help these women and to do this. And that might be the godsend of the United States that you were talking about earlier, how, this is divine intervention as far as United States is the main buyer of these women, and they're coming to a country where they have the opportunity, hopefully, to get out. Because if they were anywhere else, the odds are is that they're not getting out.
I guess next question: is there anything you want to make aware to the general public that is not necessarily known? Any bad info out there? Misconceptions?
Yeah, we've actually we've touched on it. It's out there. It's known. There's no denying that human trafficking is a real thing, and it can happen to you. It can happen to your children. It can happen to your family. It can, and it's in abundance. It's everywhere, and human trafficking does not care about demographics. It's actually kind of, to use a poor term, it's sobering. Human trafficking does not care about race, it does not care about age, it does not care about religious views, it doesn't care about any of that. All the things that divide us in this country, it does not care about. All it cares about is money. And I guess the biggest thing is just don't live in denial, and watch what your watch what your children ingest as far as social media, popular culture. Our culture right now is a hotbed. It's cultivated for human trafficking because it's seen as a glamorous act. It's seen as, these children have pieces missing from whatever points in their life, and it can be anything. But that's the thing. As a parent, you have to guide your children, and like I said before, some of these children, they don't have parents anymore, so it's a next of kin, or it falls to the state, or it falls to whoever, but. It's real, and it's dangerous, and it's not going anywhere as far until you take the money element out of it, and that's also not going anywhere either. They say by 2030, human trafficking will overtake the drug trade in profits made annually, if something, dramatically is not done. And so, if there's anything I can tell parents, if there's anything I can tell, children or people who may be involved in human trafficking right now, victims, there is a way out. There are people here that want to help. We have call outs for that stuff. There's phone numbers. I wish I had one on me.
Do you have? I guess when you find that, I'll put that down in the description.
Appreciate that. Yeah,
phone numbers, contact, all that stuff.
Yeah, and just cannot emphasize enough that it's a real thing, and I see it every day, and I work with it every day, and
And I know we had talked about it a little bit before, but it seems, and you actually just answered one of my questions. I was going to ask, what's the best way we can do to, kind of protect our children and watch out for them? Yeah. But we had talked about it kind of towards the beginning. It almost seems like just in the last several months, the number of stings and operations. I mean, there was a deal in Georgia not too long ago, and then some other ones, at least 3 to 4 that I know of or I've read about just in the last week. I mean, finding 20, 30, 40 kids of, like you said, that they thought they were lost. I don't know if it's just being publicized more. I don't think this stuff is publicized enough. I agree. For instance, one of the things people talked about that I think kids, like 30-something kids, were found in a trailer home in Georgia. Why isn't that on the front page of the news? I guess the one glimmer of hope is that it does seem like we're making a valiant effort, or law enforcement, both at the local, state, federal levels, making a valiant effort to go after these people and do what they can. And like I said, it just seems like within just in the last few months that several big sting operations, they've uncovered handfuls and dozens of kids that they thought were lost. So I guess that is one glimmer of hope.
It is.
That we have. I guess my last question, what can we do as everyday people, citizens, parents, and you might have already answered this, not necessarily law enforcement, but what can the average citizen, person, parent do to help mitigate this or stop human trafficking?
From the viewpoint of someone, let's just say someone
besides shooting them, which would be my preferred method.
The best thing to do is become so unapologetically annoying when it comes to when you see something or you think of something. If you see a panel van, and again, if I hadn't worked this case, I thought you'd be lying. And I know that kind of contradicts what I've been saying, that this stuff is out there, but some of this stuff is audacious. It's insane that it would happen. And case in point, we had a case of a guy in Clear Lake who had a panel van, no windows. White van, something you see in the movies, stealing children, this, that, and the other.
Stereotypical.
He's driving from construction site to construction site with 2 to 3 girls in his van, pulling up, opening the door, and saying, pick one. This went on in Clear Lake for months.
And if what y'all don't understand is, I actually grew up down in that area. Clear Lake is a very affluent part, or there are the areas surrounding Clear Lake, not so much, but Clear Lake proper, that is a fairly affluent suburban area of Houston. I mean, you're not talking, Sunnyside, Third Ward. I mean, that is a fairly well off to do people. They have that's crazy that in that affluent of an area that would happen.
And I guess the point I'm getting at is that if you see something, say something. I mean, that goes back to old military rhetoric, but if you think something's going on, say something. If you're in a restaurant and you think you see something that looks, suspicious, say something. And call 911. Get it. You can be anonymous and still be involved. And that's what it's going to take. It takes a village. It takes a village to turn the cheek, and it takes a village to look back and say, there's something wrong and there's something we have to do.
Any idea, so were those kids from the panel van, were they local to the Clear Lake area, or were they from somewhere else?
That I don't know. I think from the last one of the case reports I've read, it's been a little bit, but they found 2 of the girls who had involvements with that in another operation.
Okay.
I think one was actually from down south. They're Harlingen,
okay.
I think.
Yep. Right on
and then I think another one was actually from I want to say out near El Paso or whatnot. But the consortium, what they all have is that they either lost their parents or it was some kind of family or whatever. They were looking for a way out, and then they found their way into that. But yeah, it's cases like that people are like, oh, that's not true. Like something like that would never happen, and it happens every day. Wow. We
need to do this again.
I agree, man. I think what you're doing here is great. Is getting it out there, and thank
you for coming on and being able to talk about it, because I know some people are, I don't want my face out there. But
no. I mean, I investigate crimes. That's what I do. I'm not an undercover agent, and all I do is I back those men and women up on that. But what you're doing here, you asked me, what can a person do? It's stuff like this. What you're doing here is exactly what needs to be done.
We need to talk about it.
Exactly.
It needs to be. It shouldn't be taboo anymore.
Exactly.
It is a legit issue. It is a more. It's a. I don't know. Pandemic's a proper word to call it, but it is a huge issue that needs to be addressed and dealt with.
That's actually, I've never heard it put that way. That is a perfect rendition of that. It is a pandemic within itself, and that's sad. It is extremely sad. And but yeah, what you're doing is, I think, is great. That's right.
Trying to do what we can.
Any
closing statements? Anything we didn't cover?
No. I again, I appreciate you having me on. Appreciate me doing this.
Thank you, guys. Once again, thank you all for watching. Kevin's going to give me some information, websites, emails, telephone numbers, whatever. I will put those down and below. If for some reason something or you suspect something that is going on, please contact the authorities. If you are involved in human trafficking or whatnot, like he said, there is a way out. There are people who care about you. There are people that want you safe. So I'll provide all those resources, numbers, contact stuff below for both victims and people who think that it might be going on. But yeah, thanks again, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Guys, thank y'all again. Be safe, be smart, be skilled. See y'all later.